It's just your word against his. Yeah, you really want to prove it? Put a fucking surveillance state apparatus in your home so that we can watch the video of you being attacked. Otherwise, yeah, fuck off. Actually worse than doing nothing at all. Oh, who's ready for more anarchist anarchist propaganda? Proof that I am a real anarchist. Fuck the cops. We're gonna hit the fuck the cops quota today. I have this article from the BBC. Usually, it's just the American cops that you know get highlighted, well, by Americans for being so cooked because you know immediacy bias, right? Like American cops in America. But no, cops elsewhere also have this problem. It's been known to happen, of being bastards and behaving as such. Here we go. BBC, 300 people tell BBC of police misogyny and racism. More than 300 people have contacted the BBC with allegations of racism, corruption, and bullying of victims by police after a Panorama undercover investigation. I don't know what Panorama is. I guess it's some sort of British org, but okay. A journalistic org or whatever. The secret filming over 7 months revealed evidence of racism, misogyny, and officers reveling in the use of force at one of London's busiest police stations. Damn, that's crazy. The institution whose sole purpose is the use of state force uses state force, and that's like all they can do, and so they just kind of lean into that. That's crazy. One of the main themes among the hundreds of people getting in touch was misogyny when they reported domestic abuse and sexual violence, with some women saying reporting their rape to police was like being raped again. By the way, this is why rape goes so unaddressed in a lot of places for so long. Who are you going to tell? The fucking authorities? This is how the authorities would behave towards you, right? In response to the latest allegations, the National Police Chiefs Council said it was working hard to build a culture based on integrity and trust and improving and vetting misconduct procedures. Nothing burger-ass statement. We've spoken to many of the women who contacted us through your voice, your BBC News, with stories of mistreatment, whose experiences span police forces across England from rural counties to big cities. We have changed their names to protect their identities. A police officer allegedly told Joanna to grow a pair when she reported being punched in the face by her partner several months ago, she told us. Her partner had been drinking excessively when he returned home and angrily attacked her, she says. She found herself at the local police station in tears. I was devastated, and the police made it 10 times worse. My face had a bruise from the punch, and one of the officers looked at me as if I was exaggerating the whole thing. With a black eye, mind you. Visible black eye. He told me to grow a pair, followed by a chuckle. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It took so much to go there in the first place, and then I wished I hadn't. Bro, this guy just looks like he's the type to fucking do some shit like that. I don't even know if this is the guy, but... No, I think this is a different guy. One woman was motivated to get in touch with the BBC by a scene Panorama filmed of a Metropolitan Police officer being dismissive of a pregnant woman's allegations of rape and domestic violence. The officer said of her account to a colleague, that's what she says. Great. Ava was also pregnant when she fled her abusive partner, who she says repeatedly raped and hit her. She said the treatment and attitude of the officer she met that night meant she would never return to the police in the future. This, I feel like, is also, like, again, very damning. It's like, I bet these people beat their significant others. They do. That's another reason that domestic violence goes underreported, is that the police don't help. And the reason the police don't help is because most of them are also domestic abusers. According to the statistics that we have available, this is just what we've been able to gather, what people have been willing to cop to. 40% of police in America are domestic abusers. Let me even try to find that statistic right now. This is from Oregon, National Center for Women and Counseling. Zoom in, enhance. Two studies have found that at least 40% of police officer families experience domestic violence, in contrast to 10% of the families in the general population. Which this is going to mean that the cops are the ones doing the abuse, right? Like I've said on other occasions, there's a pre-selection for and bias towards certain kinds of people in the police force. Your job is to use the force of the state, which then personifies you as the state, which is a literal patriarchal authority. Even for women that you know, they succumb to this kind of mindset. There is a profound storm of psychological influences that either are already present that make people want to sign up for the job, or that get instilled into you through police training. Whenever you see police officer families experience domestic violence, 99% of the time, almost guaranteed, it's going to be the police officer abusing their partner. Unless it's two police in a relationship, in which case the police will both be the abuser and abused. Third study of older and more experienced officers found a rate of 24%, indicating that domestic violence is 2 to 4 times more common among police families and American families in general. That tracks 2 to 4 times. So, yeah, just to highlight that. Oop, I think but I recently closed. There we go. Give me this. Here we go. Come on, give me. Okay. But yeah, back to this. So yes, there is a preponderance of evidence that cops are very, very much more inclined to be domestic abusers than the general population, which means they are literally the last place. You would have better luck going to a perfect stranger to help you with a situation of domestic abuse than going to the cops, who are supposed to be the trusted authority. You know? If you're ever in this situation, legitimately, this is interpersonal advice. If you are ever in a situation of domestic abuse, go to a friend first, somebody you trust. Do not fucking call the cops. They will usually make it worse. Or at least they have a much larger chance to make it worse than if you talk to a friend about it. You know? She said she was devastated that they did not believe her. This was this woman, Ava. Yeah. Again, names changed. Telling her that nobody gets raped more than once. Fucking stunning display of the kind of person that you are likely to find in the police force. Not sound biased, but he does look like the person that would beat their wife. Yeah, I noted as such. Cops have the fucking abuser phrenology or some shit. It was like I was being raped all over again, she said. What they put me through was worse than what I was going through before. Ava says evidence that would have supported her case was willfully ignored, and she was told that without CCTV evidence of an attack, it's just your word against his. Yeah, you really want to prove it? Put a fucking surveillance state apparatus in your home so that we can watch the video of you being attacked. Otherwise, yeah, fuck off. Actually worse than doing nothing at all. These people are disgusting. She believes being a black woman made matters worse. It probably did. The color of my skin meant everything was stacked against me. The language they used and how dismissive and mocking they were was both misogynist and racist, she said. People wonder why. Yeah, people wonder why, like, women don't report domestic abuse or rape or whatever. This is why. The motherfuckers that you report it to are, like, just as likely to say, no, you're lying. Also, nobody gets raped more than once. Also, you probably deserved it or something. They asked why I thought he was doing it to me, as if I was the problem, as if I'd brought it all on myself. This is massive red flag. If anybody ever confides, like recounts a story of, like, a sexual assault and somebody asks, like, why, like, incredulously asking why they would do that to you, it, like, bro, feels like real life. Yeah, again, like, anarchist propaganda. Fucking try not to be radicalized against the state and state power and the fucking cops. Difficulty impossible. Oh yeah, police contribute to a fucking domestic abuse and rape crisis because most of them are also domestic abusers and rapists. Notably, the police and potentially the military are the only state institutions that suffer from this problem. I wonder why the fuck that is. I don't know as much of the statistics on the military. To my knowledge, militaries, at least in first world, countries, tend to be actually more disciplined than the police in their behavior. There's still massive problems of racism, misogyny, sexual violence, and domestic abuse in the military, but it's less bad than in the police. Regardless, those are the two major institutional representations of that problem. I wonder the fuck why. I wonder why these two borderline unaccountable institutions whose entire job it is to use state force, sometimes lethal state force, to keep a population scared and in line, is full of domestic abusers. And, like, people with pro-rape ideology. Like, I wonder what could the fucking connection be. Policing Minister Sarah Jones told the BBC that the government would not tolerate these sickening comments and urged people to report them. This is, like, unironically, this is it's still wishy-washy, but, like, a way fucking better statement than, what was it, the National Police Chiefs Council. She said police chiefs have been given new powers to dismiss officers who commit gross misconduct. We will root out those unfit to serve the public. Oh, great. Give the police chiefs new powers to, like, dismiss. Right? I'm sure this will not be used in any way to, like, make the police departments even worse. The worst possible fucking... I mean, look. These people should be fired. But, like, just giving the police chiefs this power is not the fucking PR move they think it is. They're like, bro, you gotta at least try to lie better. Yeah. Another woman, Claire, told us how she escaped from her abusive former partner who had coercively controlled her for 12 years, only to find that police did not want to get involved when he breached court orders to stay away from her. Literally breached a court order. She was like, yeah, I'm getting a restraining order for your ass. And then he breached the restraining order. She was like, hey, this guy, not even, like, the complaint wasn't even, I have been raped. Or some shit like that. The complaint was, yeah, I have this restraining order against this guy who I was in an abusive relationship, and he's been breaching the restraining order. The police are like, okay, we're not going to do anything. Like, fucking hell. Anybody who tells you that the police uphold the law and protect the citizenry and whatever according to the law is full of shit. That is not the job of the police. That has never been the job of the police. Not insofar as the text of the law and the spirit of what, legal scholars and activists would consider to be the purpose of the law anyways. Their job is to, quote unquote, administer the law insofar as they are the state and they will tell you what to do. And if you don't do what they say, they will hit you with a stick. That is the law to the police, and that is the kind of law that you get with a police department. That is not the kind of law that you would see written in case filings, that you would hear people advocating for in the streets, that legal scholars would speak in terms of rights and protections. Police do not deal in the law like that. That is not the business in which they truck and barter. On one occasion, her former partner entered her home and locked her out despite an injunction banning him from the property, and the police still did fuck all. She said it took, oh my God, and it's even worse. She said it took the police more than 7 hours to arrive, and then they just stood laughing and chatting with him. She and her 3 children ended up having to stay with a friend for months. The police literally, like, enabled this guy to... They were, like, chopping it up, being like, haha, isn't that so funny that you fucking did breaking and entering? Breaking and entering is a crime, by the way. Doesn't matter what fucking country you're in. Yeah, we don't protect victims. We don't even arrest criminals. We just chop it up with them, especially if they're domestic abusers. I felt even more afraid and more isolated after speaking to the police. It's a boys' club, a network across police stations, police forces, and county lines, Claire said. I would never call the police, and I still worry he'll find me and show up. See, this, again, I swear I didn't pre-read this. This is why you talk to a friend. She and her 3 children ended up having to stay with a friend for months, and the friend took them in. The friend has been infinitely more help than the police have been in any one of these. Across like 3 or 4 different stories, we've seen like 5 or 6 different instances of the police doing nothing or making the situation worse. And the one time they mentioned a friend, like a random person that they knew, they were a massive help. Staying with a friend for months, that can be a pretty big ask. But they were willing to do it. At the end of the day, I don't know what the situation was like, but it was like, that certainly seems to have been better than like being stalked by your abusive ex and the police laughing about it. Training program called Domestic Abuse Matters was developed by the College of Policing in 2016. It's used by 37 out of 44 police forces in England and Wales to improve the way they deal with victims of sexual and domestic violence. And part of the NPCC and College of Policing strategy on violence against women and girls says that one of its priorities is to challenge sexism and misogyny among police officers. This is literally just a part of that. You try to lie better about it. You know, they're not actually going to do shit about it. This is literally a fundamental flaw of a police department, a police force as a concept. You know? Deputy Assistant Commissioner Helen Millichap, NPCC lead for violence against women and girls, told the BBC police chiefs were working with police chiefs were working with survivors of domestic abuse and sexual offenses to continue to reform training, with a key focus on first responders' understandings of the dynamics of abuse and their empathy with victims. She said officers must feel confident in calling out misogyny and sexism within policing, but that improved vetting and misconduct procedures were having an impact in identifying, dismissing those who should not be in policing. Look, this is even more like substantive. A lot of this is still like, yeah, that's just a suggestion, but like this kind of training and like even like the mildest institutional change is like an improvement over whatever the fuck else the cops have been saying about themselves. And men wonder why they picked the bear. Yeah, like... It's not bear or something. One of the women who contacted the BBC said that having watched the Panorama program, she was shocked that nothing had changed in the decades since she was raped as a teenager. Jesus Christ. At least the cops would help with the bear. True. Yeah. You're more likely to get a cop's help if you're faced with a bear than if you're faced with a fucking domestic abuser. You know? And at least from a bear attack, you die. With a domestic abuser, you have to be haunted by that shit the rest of your life, and the cops aren't going to help you. They'll just make it worse. Never had a night without a nightmare as a result. I've buried a lot of what the police officers asked me. They spoke down to me like I was part of the problem, the woman, now in her 40s, said. Watching Panorama, I realized I must be one of thousands. I'm not the only one. They made me feel I was. Yeah, this, again, like this kind of attitude, the blatant misogyny and dismissal of women as like a category, of rape victims as a category, victims of like sexual assault and domestic abuse, is like a contributing part, like a major contributing part of why this shit goes so underreported. Like, why would you tell the cops? They're just gonna fucking, like, do worse than nothing. You know? Oh. How do you miss... Oh my god. Okay, whatever. Get that shit out of here. Okay, clearly I need to deal with you first. Then you. Get out of here. Thank you, Rattata. Although I probably need to take care of this Magmar so none of us get burnt. Jesus Christ, can you hit your attack, please? I hate how long that takes. But yeah, ACAB moment. Nobody fucking forget. Cops fucking pieces of shit. And that's what you get when you have a completely unaccountable, unelected institution of people who, well, maybe not completely unelected. I think there are like commissioners and chiefs and whatever that are elected positions in the UK and in America. But yeah, that's what you get when you have an like almost completely unaccountable institution whose sole job is to be the arbiters of what is legitimate or not in the eyes of the state, and be the arbiters of where it is or isn't justified to use the force of the state to, like, I don't know, do anything, right? Their job is literally to harm, to do harm. So obviously they're gonna do that shit for domestic abuse victims. That's just as a systemic, you know, like a purely, completely impersonal, systemic by the numbers matter. Like incorporating mass psychology and a more individualized psychology into the matter. Think of the kind of person that unaccounted power would attract. Of course they're gonna be fucking domestic abuse apologists and pieces of shit, right? Of course all cops are bastards. There's literally zero consequence for when they do any of this shit. Anyways, thank you for coming to my anarchist TED Talk. If that's a segment, cut it there. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.